The information shared on Light Body Radio is for educational and informational purposes only. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed healthcare provider, or qualified wellness practitioner with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or health goal. Dr. Lara May, her guests, and affiliates do not claim to cure, prevent, or treat any condition and are not responsible for any actions taken based on the information shared in this podcast. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are responsible for your own health decisions and that any actions you take based on the content are at your own discretion and risk. Thank you for tuning in to Light Body Radio.
Welcome to Light Body Radio, where science meets soul and healing gets multidimensional. I am your host, Dr. Lara May, functional medicine pharmacist, master intuitive Reiki channel, and certified life and health coach. Here we decode root causes, transmute stuck energy, and empower your full spectrum healing journey, body, mind, and light body. This isn't just wellness, it's awakening, grounded in science, guided by spirit, and designed for your evolution. Let's rise and radiate. Welcome to the next level of you. Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I am your host, Dr. Lara May, and today we are going to be talking about the biology of repair and the role that peptides can have within that context. So we're specifically going to be talking about BPC-157 and TB-500. So up until now, we have been talking about peptides through the lens of signaling, metabolism, appetite, and systemic regulation. But today we're going to shift into something a little different. We're going to talk about healing and repair, tissue healing and repair. So not symptom management and not necessarily optimization, but the actual biology of how the body heals and restores itself. So specifically, again, tissue healing, inflammation resolution, gut integrity, of course, because the gut is the center to all of the things in our body, and recovery from injury and or chronic stress. And the peptides we're focusing on today are BPC-157 and TB-500. And they have become some of the most talked about peptides in this space. They are some of the most well-known and researched, but like everything we've said so far in this series, they are not magic. They are signals. And the question is not, do they work? Of course they work. But the question really is what kind of environment are they working in? What is the state of your body, of your physiology, of your health that you are going to introduce these peptides to? So let's go a little bit deeper than just surface level definitions, because you know that's how I roll. So understanding how these peptides work at a physiological level will completely change how we think about them and how we use them. So BPC-157 is gut-derived repair and vascular signaling. It is derived from a naturally occurring protein found in our gastric juices. What makes it unique is that it interacts with multiple healing pathways simultaneously. One of its key roles is modulation of the nitric oxide system. And I have a very good episode with a very informed guest on nitric oxide. So if you haven't listened to that, go back, find that one on drlaramay.com/podcast. Just type nitric oxide in the search and it'll come up. Anyway, nitric oxide regulates vascular tone, blood flow, oxygen delivery, and endothelial function. So in the last episode, we talked a little bit about the heart muscle and how that is, those tissues in those cells are actually endothelial cells. And so nitric oxide actually has a great impact on our cardiac health. But in injury or inflammation, nitric oxide signaling often becomes dysregulated. So BPC-157 appears to help normalize this system, which then leads to improved microcirculation, enhanced delivery of oxygen and nutrients, and more efficient removal of the inflammatory byproducts that our body naturally creates. So it also supports angiogenesis, which is the formation of new blood vessels through pathways involving what we call VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. And this is critical because many tissues, especially tendons, ligaments, and parts of the guts, have limited blood supply. And so any way that we can increase the chance that these limited blood supply areas are going to get more of it, that's going to be helpful. That's going to help you heal faster, recover faster. So without adequate blood flow, healing is essentially slow or just incomplete. And so at the cellular level, BPC-157 supports fibroblast activation, collagen synthesis and organization, extracellular matrix stability. So that is how the cells actually work together and hold each other together. So those are all really important. So think about this like in the context of like if you have either an acute injury like an ankle sprain, or maybe you have had an ACL or an MCL surgery. So something like that. And think about ligaments and tendons and how though they don't have a lot of vasculature, right? And so it does take those things longer to heal. And so this is an avenue where introducing this peptide to your system could help those things heal faster for you, could decrease your recovery time, which is a good thing. So let's also talk about the gut here. So BPC-157 also appears to promote regeneration of the intestinal lining. So this can have a profound impact for anybody out there suffering from any gut issues. And we always talk about gut issues on this show, but so I don't think I need to rehash what all those are, but just know that promotion of regeneration of intestinal lining is something that BPC-157 has been shown to do. It supports tight junction integrity. Quiz, what do the tight junctions do in your gut? And do we remember leaky gut out there, people? All right, so it can actually help repair leaky gut because it is supporting the tight junction integrity itself. And it reduces inflammatory signaling in the gut, in the GI tract. And so again, we're decreasing inflammation. So functionally, this means improved barrier function, reduced immune activation, decreased systemic inflammation. So it's not just a healing peptide, but it really is. The implications are very far-reaching in a very positive way. But it is vascular, connective tissue, and gut repair signaling molecule. So think about all that. Vascular, connective tissue, and gut repair signaling molecule. All of those things. Think about where all of those things occur throughout your beautiful human body and all the implications that that can have. Okay, so the next one that we're going to bring in to the picture is TB-500. And this focuses more on systemic repair and cellular movement. TB-500 is a synthetic version of thymosin beta-4, a peptide that naturally is present in most human cells. Its primary role is in the cellular movement and structural repair. And at the core of its mechanism is actin regulation. So when our muscles have a contraction, the proteins that are involved are actin and myosin. So actin is a protein that is actively involved in muscle contractions. So actin allows cells to move, migrate, and change structure. So think about when you're building muscle and how the kind of remodeling that you need to build a muscle. So this is actually a good kind of remodeling. So this is essentially also essential for healing because repair requires cells physically moving to the side of the injury for that repair. So TB-500 enhances actin polymerization improving cell migration, tissue regeneration, and structural rebuilding. It also promotes angiogenesis, just like our other friendly little peptide that we talked about earlier. So this increases blood flow to the damaged tissue. And it can also influence inflammatory modulation and the tissue remodeling pathways. So TB-500 tends to act more systemically, supporting repair across the whole body, whereas BPC-157 we talked about is a little bit more specific. But again, if you think about that frame of mind of that specificity, those are still really wide implications. So let's talk about how they work together. The BPC-157 stabilizes tissue, improves blood flow, supports local repair. TB-500 mobilizes repair cells, enhances regeneration, and supports systemic healing. So together, they are creating a coordinated and efficient healing response. So I want to dive a little deeper too into the biology of healing, which means in this context, inflammation, proliferation, and remodeling. So healing is not, especially when we use this word in this context, it is not just one event. It is a multiple phase process. There is a process that our body goes to in multiple phases that will impact how our body, you could say, comes back to normal, comes back into a state of homeostasis, but essentially like regenerates itself, creates something new to help with that homeostasis. And so when any of these phases are disrupted, then the healing can become incomplete. So phase 1, inflammation. This is the initiation signal. When a tissue is injured, cells released damage signals. And we talked about these. These are the cytokines. And immune cells are recruited. So TNF alpha, IL-6, IL-1 beta are released. This is a natural and normal reaction from our body, from our immune system, to try to help repair that injured tissue. Excuse me. So this creates increased blood flow. This is what creates swelling. And it actually is an immune activation. It's an immune system instigator, activator. So during this phase, the damaged tissue, your body will try to clear it, but it'll also initiate repair. But if the inflammation persists, then tissue breakdown can also continue to your detriment, and then your healing process stalls. And so BPC-157 can come in and help regulate that cytokine activity, protect the blood vessels, and reduce excessive inflammatory damage that your body might be bringing to the injury site, especially if you already have pre-existing inflammation in your body, which a lot of us do. And then the TB-500 helps then also transition out of this prolonged inflammation cycle. Okay, so then phase 2. So this is the proliferation phase. This is the rebuilding of tissue phase. So in this phase, the fibroblasts produce your collagen, your new blood vessels are formed, and tissue structure is rebuilt. And in order to do this, your body requires oxygen, nutrients, and coordinated signaling. So BPC-157 again enhances that fibroblast activity. So it's going to enhance your body producing the collagen to heal that area. And then it improves the collagen production. And then the TB-500 increases the cell migration. So it supports more of those good cells coming into the area, supports more of that new tissue formation. And so this is how together they work in concert, and they accelerate and improve tissue repair. And then the final phase is phase 3, and this is the remodeling phase. So we can also call this the strength and function phase. And this is where sort of like the final phase of where you're starting to sort of feel back to normal, and like get your strength back. So the collagen is reorganized and it's strengthened and it's aligned properly to fit within the context of wherever that injury is. And this is what determines whether that tissue is going to be strong and you're going to maybe go back to be able to do the activities that you did before, or maybe not. Maybe you're going to remain vulnerable and impaired and weakened indefinitely, unfortunately, depending. So peptides support this phase, but they do not replace proper movement, mechanical loading, and timing. So PT is really important. Again, like continuing to move in a healthy way, appropriate to where you are in your recovery and your injury, introducing load-bearing exercises at the appropriate time, working on mobility and flexibility, range of motion, all of these things. So these things are super, super important and should not be removed from the equation at all. Again, peptides are meant to be a complement, not a replacement. And so let's look now more at where our healing mechanisms get stuck, and that is the inflammation piece. So healing doesn't fail because inflammation exists. It fails because the inflammation doesn't self-resolve. And so in a healthy system, inflammation activates and then it resolves and then repair completes itself. But with many of us, the cytokines remain elevated because of other inflammation from other things going on in our body. The oxidative stress persists, and the body never exits that inflammatory phase. And so the system stays stuck, and it doesn't, it is not able to get out of the cycle and to move into the other phases of the proliferation and the remodeling. And this can show up as chronic pain, slow recovery, and lingering symptoms. So BPC-157 helps because it can stabilize that vascular integrity. It reduces the excessive inflammatory signaling, and it actually helps improve circulation, which again, that improving that circulation helps your body bring the nutrients and the type of signaling and cells that it needs to the site for the repair. And the TB-500 then also helps move the system into that repair mode and out of the inflammation mode. So we're not suppressing the inflammation, but we're actually helping that inflammation stage complete itself in a healthy way. So again, we're sending signals to your body so it can do what it already knows it needs to do. We're just helping fill in some gaps here if it gets stuck or confused. So gut healing, which is an aspect I feel like in a lot of these conversations often gets missed because, again, we talk about the PT, we talk about the physical body type of things, we talk about the mobility, the movement, the actual injury site itself. But the gut itself is central to healing along with all of these other pieces. And so when the gut lining is compromised, then you're going to have increased immune activation, increased inflammatory signals, and your healing capacity actually decreases. And this affects your joints, your brain, your metabolism, your skin integrity, all of the things. And so again, like very large and broad implications. So BPC-157 supports epithelial repair, tight junction integrity, reduces that gut-driven inflammation. And so when we improve the gut health, the systemic inflammation decreases throughout the entire body and healing, excuse me, improves everywhere. Goodness, I haven't been flumming all day. Sorry, guys. All right, so let's move on to musculoskeletal healing and then why maybe injuries linger in that area. So now we're going to get into that connective tissue piece. So connective tissue heals slowly. And when we say connective tissue, it means ligaments and tendons. And so because there's low blood supply there, muscles, loss of blood supply. If you have a muscle strain, then you probably notice that it heals fairly quickly. Versus like if you sprain your ankle, then usually what happens when you sprain your ankle is you stretch those tendons or ligaments out of their normal range of motion. And because those tissues are not venerated with blood vessels, with blood flow, they don't heal as fast or as well. Again, so low blood supply, that is key to remember here. So think about this. When I was, in high school probably, but also definitely college and then definitely pharmacy school, we always talked about form and function. So think about what is the function supposed to be of whatever we're talking about, and how is the physical form around that, and how do those two things, are they how do they help each other? How are they linked? How do they complement each other? So form and function. So injury often leads to disorganized collagen, incomplete repair, and oftentimes re-injury, especially if we're pushing that PT, if we're pushing those other aspects of our recovery and our healing too fast, too hard. We can very much re-injure ourselves if we don't give our body time to heal and move through that healthy remodeling phase. So BPC-157 actually improves collagen formation. It enhances vascular support. And the TB-500 brings repair cells to the area and supports structural rebuilding. So peptides don't fix biomechanics. And so that's where your PT, that's where your time in the gym, or your maybe you're going to need to wear a brace or some sort of support mechanism around wherever you're injured or whatever you're trying to, heal or nurse back to health. So if movement patterns aren't addressed, then your injury could most definitely return. But the peptides are going to help the cellular, the physiological, the biological things that are happening underneath the skin to help you recover. And a lot of it, again, not to sound like a broken record, but is helping your body move through that inflammation cycle in the appropriate way, but also get you out of it in the appropriate timing and in an appropriate fashion. So healing is also regulated by our nervous system. And if the body is in a chronic state of stress, if our cortisol is remaining elevated, if our blood pressure is too high because of stress, then that restricts blood flow, and then repair is suppressed. So even with peptides, it's important to, again, have proper stress management tools at your disposal and utilize them. And this is why, like, people can think that they're doing everything right. Like maybe like they're really good about going to PT and they're really good about maybe doing the exercises when they're at home, but they're not eating right. They're not sleeping well. They are chronically stressed. And maybe they are pushing it a little too hard in the gym as well. And then they end up either not healing in the time frame that they would like to, or they re-injure themselves. And so the body has to feel safe enough to repair. And so again, when we talk about, is the body that we're introducing, the environment that we're introducing these peptides into, is it healthy enough to really respond in the appropriate way? Because peptides operate within the system as it is. They do not override it. Oh, remember that. And then as we wrap up here, I just also want to remind you that these peptides are not FDA approved drugs. Therefore, you will not get prescriptions for them from your doctor. Practitioners do work with them. So I encourage you to find a practitioner that, if you're curious or think that these could help you, definitely find a practitioner. But they definitely exist in a regulatory gray area. Depending on when you're finding this episode or listening to it, I know RFK Jr. is working to get these taken off of sort of like what we call the FDA blacklist and reintroduce them back into at least conversation, where they can be produced safely and sold through safe mechanisms. Because right now, if they stay on the FDA blacklist, then it's just bad for all of us. I mean, for consumers and practitioners alike, because it really interferes with a lot of the safety mechanisms that are put in place to help protect us. So it's important because you know, depending on where you're sourcing them and how you're getting them, you could be definitely, you need to be aware of where they're sourced, where they come from, are they tested, what's the oversight, all of those things. So again, you know, find a good practitioner that you trust and just know that right now it's a gray area. So when these peptides make sense, when are they the most useful? They're really the most useful when your body needs that little extra oomph for healing. Maybe you've noticed that you are stuck in a prolonged inflammatory cycle. Or, you know, so your inflammation is maybe even completely unresolved. That's okay. These can help with that. But then also too, what else are you doing to help your body get out of that inflammation cycle? You know, again, we need to use all the tools in the toolbox, not just, you know, or all the crayons, whatever the metaphor is you want to use. You don't just want to use, you know, one color all the time. That would be boring. So think about, is your nutrition adequate? Is your sleep supported? Is your stress managed and regulated? Peptides, I would never say would be considered a first line therapy, as we like to say in the medical world, nor are they standalone solutions like I've mentioned many times. They are complements. They are signal enhancers. So keep that in mind. So healing is not something that you force. It is a process. It takes phases. It takes time. It also is something that you need to support yourself through. So think about that too. Like, these peptides are improving communication. They are enhancing coordination. They are accelerating repair, but they only work well when your body is ready. So the real question is, are you creating these ideal conditions for healing? Because that is really what matters more than the peptide itself. So again, I hope this episode has been helpful. If you were driving or walking or hiking or doing whatever you're doing and you weren't able to take notes, but you found that you wanted to write something down, please pop on over to drlaramay.com/podcast. And that's where the show notes live. And we will catch you in the next episode, where we will continue this series on peptides. And we're going to move into some nervous system regulation peptides. So we're going to talk more about sleep and stress and the deeper regulation that is possible. All right, we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for joining me on Light Body Radio, where functional medicine meets intuitive healing and transformation happens on every level. If this episode resonated with you, please like, share, and if you're ready to go deeper, visit drlaramay.com to book a functional medicine consultation or an intuitive healing session. Whether you need to rebalance your body, clear your energetic blocks, or reconnect with your soul's purpose, I've got you. You can also follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Dr. Lara May for daily inspiration, energy updates, and healing tools. Remember, your healing is multidimensional, and so are you. Until next time, honor your body, trust your intuition, and activate your light.